I am thrilled, as always, to welcome Jess McIntosh. Jess has, I wouldn't even say now, Jen, 15, 20 years of political
It's
experience. She's
20.
gone 20, okay. She is an expert on political messaging. She's worked on everything all the way up to presidential campaigns. Had a wonderful show with Zerlina Maxwell for Signal Boost for many, many years. She's been in multitude of publications, so I will let Jess expound any further she wants on her resume there. But I'm going to bring her up, and we will get started.
Thank you so much, Julie. I am so excited to be here, as always. The fact that you all are taking an hour out of your evening to figure out how to engage more with your own networks is honestly the only thing that's going to get us out of this. You may have noticed that we are living in an extremely low trust environment right now. There's a lack of trust in institutions, in the media, in politicians. The people that people trust are the people they know and love. And that means you. And that is why having these conversations is so very important. You are literally the only person who can get through to the people who you love. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. Sometimes I'm amazing at reading the questions as I'm presenting. Sometimes presentation mode doesn't allow me to do that, but throw them in there. And either way, I will answer them in real time, or Julie does a fantastic job of making sure that she doesn't miss anything on the back end. So if I say something and you're like, you know what, I think if I tried that, it wouldn't work. I want to know. Let me know. I want to make sure that you're all leaving this feeling confident about going out and talking to the people that you know and love. And let me stress, you're going out and talking to the people that you know and love. This is not about shouting down somebody who opposes you or changing somebody's mind. This is about talking to your own people in your own network. And that might involve a little bit of persuasion, but it shouldn't be a debate, shouldn't be a challenge. It should be something exciting that you're looking forward to. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get myself into presentation mode. And there you are. Somebody shout if you can't see, but I'm hoping we're all good. We're going to ground ourselves in the fact that despite what it feels like right now and what it sounds like sometimes and what some of yours communities' actual makeup are, we are the majority. Like the majority. You don't get to 62 and 90% with just Democrats. That means that across the board, Republicans, independents, Democrats, the majority of people support things like birth control, 90%. That means literally everybody in every category. 62% of voters support legal abortion, and that number changes depending on how you ask the question. The number that doesn't change is the number that supports total bans. That number is always single digits. So that is very important to remember as we think about having these conversations and worrying a little bit about how they're going to go. The vast majority of people support LGBTQ rights. 71% of people, I just rechecked this stat to make sure it was still right, support marriage equality. That is an all-time high, and it continues. 64% of people believe that transgender people should be protected from discrimination. I am so sure that if we asked whether or not trans kids should be protected from bullying, which is a question I wish I had seen asked, but I haven't yet, I'm working on it, that number would be even higher. Over 60% do not want to ban lessons about LGBTQ people or books with LGBTQ authors. These are very unpopular positions when you get down to what they actually are, which is why the conversations matter. There's a lot of disinformation out there. People might not realize what it actually is, but when they do, they are on our side. 83, 87, 98, 89. These are massive numbers. These are like clean air and water numbers. And that's what people feel about banning books and not teaching US history and trying to shield our kids from the information that they need to know in order to be safe and healthy and exist in a 21st century global economy. Even on gun violence, which is often posed as one of the most controversial issues that we have out there, people are really in favor. That's why they need the disinformation about like people coming to take your guns or whatever. Because when you talk about what it actually is, everybody, almost everybody, favors background checks. Most people favor assault weapons ban. Most people favor stricter gun laws. Like this is, we are actually The majority. So why don't we feel like it? It is this. Some outside groups, and they are very, very well funded, are heavily invested in confusing and scaring people. And they do that in order to score partisan points and gain political power. They are not actually trying to change anybody's hearts and minds. They are trying to maintain power. And they do that by keeping people like you and the people who you know just confused enough to not stand up, just nervous enough to not have the conversation. These entities have been around for a very long time. They provide a front for what looks like grassroots movements. But it's why the anti-mask fights look exactly like the anti-CRT fights, look exactly like the book bans, look exactly like the anti-sex ed fights. It's because it's the same people running them, and they run them like a playbook. They have a playbook. They swap out the issue. We could go back all the way to school desegregation and watch this playbook play out. So this is what we're up against. It's a whole lot of people kind of versus a whole lot of money. But we have more of us, and that is ultimately going to be our superpower. So let's talk about how to fight that disinformation. This is the hardest slide of my entire presentation. This is the only one that won't come naturally to you. Don't repeat the disinformation. We're going to talk about it, we're going to acknowledge it, but we're not going to repeat it. So when somebody says they're coming to take our guns away, you are not going to say, no one's taking your guns away. When somebody says they're teaching porn in the classrooms, you're not going to say, no one is teaching porn in the classrooms. Because what happens when you do that is twofold. One, the way the human brain works, I say porn in the classroom, and porn and classroom go in the same file in your brain. I say taking away and guns, and those things go in the same file in your brain. Even if you know that they're false, even if you know that those statements aren't right, they now exist in the same bucket for you. And I can use a really terrible illustration that we all know now from 2024, when the presidential debate happened and the terrible, terrible disinformation about the Haitian migrant community in Springfield, Ohio, was presented on stage. There was a lot of discussion about that, about how ridiculous it was, about how racist it was, about how false it was. And all of that was great. That was an important conversation to have. But people repeated the lie over and over and over again. And now, when you hear Haitian community, that's going to be one of the things that you think of. And that is tragic. But that's how the human brain works. It's not your fault. It'll happen to me. It'll happen to you. So that is why we do not repeat it. We can say somebody said something terrible and racist, or absolutely not, that's not true. But we're not going to repeat the lie. The second reason why we don't do it is really insidious. It 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 distracts us from saying the thing that we want to say, right? Everybody has a reason for being here. Everybody has things that they want to say to their friends, that they're excited to communicate about the values that they have, about what's going on at their school. If you wind up debating whether or not someone's coming to take your guns away, you are not talking about common sense background checks. You are not talking about how important it is to keep our kids safe and how insane it is that gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children. If you're debating whether or not someone's taking guns away, you're not making any of those really great points. And that's exactly what they want. Because when you make those really great points, the majority of people that we talked about, they hear it and they believe it and they're with you. And so the other side has to do whatever they can to prevent you from sharing your truth. And they do that with disinformation. On the one hand, it confuses people, and on the other hand, it makes us stop and debate them. And that is a waste of our time and what they are looking to do. So when somebody comes at you with disinformation, you're just going to say no. You're just going to say, that's not true. There's a lot of bad information out there. I'm not sure where you've heard that, but what I want to make sure you, or even something like, I don't know about that, but what I do know about is our school. And you're going to move the conversation right back to where you want to be. I don't know about what's happening in DC, but what I do know is what's happening right here. You're going to talk about the things that you want to talk about. Talk about the fact that there is disinformation out there, letting people know that there's bad information. I mean, they already know it. So when you say that, That's something that resonates with them. Let them know that the truth is there are outside groups and some politicians who are just super invested in confusing and scaring them. That is how they score political points. But the second bullet, I think, will get you out and into a lot of productive conversations. But we believe our kids are more important than politics. If somebody wants to debate whatever Trump said that day or talk about whatever's going on in DC, we believe our kids are more important than politics. We'll take that conversation right back to where you want it to be. We're also going to stand up for our beliefs. It is okay to own them, especially today as we see even more attacks on schools, and attacks on, attacks on our way of life, frankly, attacks on our values, attacks on our democracy. It is okay to stand up for what you believe in. Every one of our schools includes students who are LGBTQ, every single school, public, private, Catholic, all of them. And those kids deserve an education. In fact, learning in an environment that treats gay and trans kids with respect actually creates a safer school for everybody. This is medically proven. Your straight kid is safer from bullying and harassment at a school that treats gay kids with respect. We've already talked about gun violence a little bit. Everybody has their own personal story to share with the fear around that and sending our kids to school, and some people even have more intimate stories with them. Um, Ditto abortion. Everybody knows and loves somebody who has had an abortion. It is okay to lean into these things, especially with a personal story, especially with the reason why you care. But we're gonna stand up for it. So we've talked a little bit about this already, but we're just going to lay it out. These are the three categories of people that you may talk to. The first is the opposition. I'm going to call these, like, the opposition are people who are simply never going to see it your way. It is extremely, bless you, whoever that was. It is extremely sad when somebody I would classify as the opposition is a member of your family. I'm not saying ignore them entirely. I'm saying that's a very different kind of work. It takes a very long time. It is doable, but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of years, frankly. There's a reason why cult deprogramming is so difficult, and that is sort of what we're looking at right now. So that is sort of a different thing. I don't mean to minimize anybody's experience with their father or uncle or mom, but we're talking about the opposition as in the ones who show up to the school board meetings in order to yell. We're not engaging with them. We are not wasting our time and energy. Our mental health is too important. We have too much work to do. Engaging with them will leave us feeling depleted. It will not change anybody's mind. We are going to let it go. The only reason to ever engage with them is if there's an audience. If you have a chance to fight in front of the kids and you're the kind of person who likes a little bit of a fight, then maybe choose, everybody knows themselves, walk away from this if it's not for you. But if it is, consider engaging with them, knowing that your real audience are the people watching. You are not going to change the mind of the person you're talking to. You're not really talking to them. You are talking to the other people attending the school board. You are talking to the other people at the rally. The next group of people are the really important ones. These are the ones who you know and love, and they might have heard something that is genuinely frightening because the disinformation is frightening for a reason. If I believed it, I would be terrified. So a lot of good faith people run into bad information and then want to talk about it. So meet them, talk to them. They are not the paid opposition. They are not wearing the t-shirts. The first thing to do is find common ground. They are expressing a concern, likely. Likely, it is a concern that you share. If they are worried about something being taught in the classroom, well, you care a lot about what kids are being taught in class too. You guys share that. So the first thing we do is find common ground. We recognize their fear. You're worried about a safe community. I am also worried about a safe community. You're worried about rights and freedoms. I am also worried about rights and freedoms. So we all want the same thing here. And then you're going to turn but into that's why. So if somebody, let's go back to the stealing your guns thing. Somebody says, I'm worried they're going to take my guns away from me. I heard that was going to happen. I'm going to say, look, I'm also really concerned about personal liberty. That's something that I care a lot about. That's why I support gun laws that respect my personal right to be safe in public. So I'm not going to say, I support personal liberty too, but background checks are the way to make sure that everybody's safe. because everybody knows as soon as you say but, it completely negates everything that came before. Anybody who's ever heard I love you but knows that you lose the first half of the sentence the second you say it. So say that's why. The reason why you care about kids getting sex ed is because you care about them being safe and healthy. The person who has heard about porn in the classroom is probably also concerned about kids being scared and being safe and healthy. So meet them there first and then say, that's why I support sex ed. When you're talking to the allied, this is the fun one. You're talking to somebody and they're like, yes. And you're like, but this. And they're like, yes. You still have a job to do here. This is the most important, most fun job, and that is to recruit them. You're going to make it urgent. A lot of people care a lot about, things like sex ed, but they don't know that it's under attack right now. They might care a lot about the environment or the climate change, but not know how it affects their own community. Most people have no idea what bills are coming up locally, what's happening at their school board, who their local elected representatives are. So if you find somebody who cares a ton about reproductive rights and you can explain to them that the state Supreme Court race that's up this year will affect their reproductive rights, that is new and valuable information to them. So if somebody seems to be completely aligned with you on values, talk about why they matter right now, talk about why they matter super locally, and then get them to join Red Wine and Blue. So to finish, just a little bit of a recap. You're going to stay focused. These conversations are not about Washington, D.C. They are about your kids. They are not about partisanship. They're about your town. You're going to ask questions. There is so much bad information out there. What is it you're concerned about? Where is it that you learned that? Why is it that you feel that way? That's going to give you a productive place to start from. You're going to remember to say no, or that isn't true, and then move directly on to the facts. We are not going to stay in debate disinformation. You're going to find common ground. You're going to share their concern and then say, that's why. And you're going to acknowledge the bad actors. It's actually really important to point out that there are bad actors out there, and the motivations here are not good. They are, to enrich yourself and score political points and maintain power. And it has absolutely nothing to do with community well-being. It is okay to talk about the bad guys. But I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and open it up for questions because there are always so many very, very good ones. This was one of the times where I was not good at looking in the chat. So I am going to rely on Julie.
Well, I've got some good ones here for you. So, why doesn't mainstream media touch on this, on the polls and the information that you gave?
I think to a certain extent they do. I mean, what issues are we specifically worried about? Like, what I want to make sure that I'm answering this question. So I want to know if you want to add it to the chat, whoever asked it. Are you worried about why mainstream media doesn't talk about disinformation or a particular issue or how the majority of us are in agreement? If it's the last one, it's because Discord always leads. And if somebody is a loud and vocal minority, that is way more interesting than a bunch of people in a room agreeing with each other. So that's just kind of a problem with the for-profit news system, and I don't know how to fix it. But antagonism leads and hostility leads. Lots of people have heard the "if it bleeds, it leads" old cliche about crime. You can sort of apply that to other things. So majority being in favor of a thing and together on it is not a headline that people love to write. We can do our best to make our voices. I mean, everybody saw how much they discounted the Women's March after we literally had the largest mobilization in history, in United States history. And you could turn on the TV the next morning, and on the Sunday shows, it would be like the second or third story. Like, a lot of people coming together and agreeing doesn't do it. That doesn't mean it doesn't matter. I mean, we all know how much that mattered. So we just got to keep being loud and talk to each other. We can't rely on the mainstream media to do it. That's why relational organizing, friend-to-friend organizing matters so much. It's very hard to cut through the noise. There are very few people who are reporting on the things in the way that I just presented them. So hopefully I've answered your question. If I haven't, drop a little bit more about what you were looking for. But
So,
We are
A lot of
coming to save us. They are not.
A lot of the comments about the mainstream media had to do with sane washing, or why don't they point out the lies? Why are they, and you kind of answered that with, the whole that
Yeah.
who believes it leads piece. Um, and so then the people say I have a hard time with the both sides, and that's
Yes. Oh my God, the
how,
both sidesism is the worst. Yeah,
yeah.
like it just sort of one of the reasons why we do this work is because we don't have the kind of media that would give measured, nuanced weight to all of these issues.
Mhm.
We have to talk, and the mainstream media is getting it's getting less. Its influence is waning every day anyway. So it was an imperfect vessel for our message to begin with. And now it's even weaker than it was, which really means like it is on us. Like it is our conversations with each other are the thing that works. And what you put on social media, your larger conversations with your networks. But the mainstream media has, it's not been meeting the moment for a minute now.
So can you even have a conversation with someone who is a Fox News devotee?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this goes back to what kind of Fox News devotee are we? If this is dyed in the wool, loves to antagonize you, would never accept a gay member of their family, regularly says racist stuff, and is like very heavily down the rabbit hole, the only way to reach them is by being very close to them and by providing a non-judgmental space where you ask them questions and you listen for a decade. It can be done. And Red, Wine, and Blue members have stories of this, but those stories take years. So if you're ready to do that, like get in it for the long game and don't offer your opinion. Just ask questions. Let them know that you are a safe space to bring concerns, to bring issues that they might be feeling one way or the other about. Like you can provide your own personal experience, but we're not debating. We're acknowledging that we are on different parts. But maybe we can find a little common ground here. We all believe people deserve to be treated with respect, right? That's sort of my universal common ground finder. Everybody says yes to that. So we can find a little common ground, we can create a little space, and we can take a lot of time to do it. If you are talking to somebody who is a Fox viewer, who is, would maybe call themselves an independent, uh, maybe, believes that abortion should be legal, but probably is, certainly never protested about it. They're not racist and they love their gay kid, but they watch a lot of Fox. Those are the people for whom we find common ground and we tell them that's why we believe the things that we believe, and we talk to them about what's happening locally and what's happening, what the impacts on their own community and their own family are for some policies. But we, again, you make it respectful and you make it non-judgmental. Getting people to say that they've changed their mind is basically impossible. Getting someone to say you can get them to change their mind, but getting them to admit I was wrong about this thing I believed is one of the hardest things a human being can do. So we go into these knowing that that's not going to happen. If we win this person that we're talking to will eventually agree with us, and they will have always agreed with us. We will never get the "you were right, I was wrong." So it's a mental reframe if you're going to do it. But honestly, spend your time on the people who are not these enormous challenges, because they are the majority. Like most people get it. They just don't get what's happening right at home. They just don't get what's happening right now. They don't get what their role in all of it is. um, Spend at least 90% of your efforts there. If 10% needs to go to the Fox News watchers who you love and care about, like do it, Godspeed. But do not spend the majority of your time doing that work. It is a long game kind of work.
And So that somebody had asked the question, how many times and what method does one need to use to change the way one thinks? So I think you just answered all of that. But the second part to their question is, why do people even listen to disinformation? What is that hitting?
Well, I mean, they don't know that it's disinformation when they hear it. You know, there are there the opposition is very good at telling terrible things. Like there are people believe social media. They believe you know, people will say, "Oh, I heard that on Twitter," as if Twitter was a source and not a platform for tons and tons of sources. People are busy. They are not spending their time fact checking and looking critically at where they heard something, or somebody that they trust, because we trust the people that we know, believes something that's wrong and they told them. And well, I trust my brother and my brother told me this was happening and so this is happening.
Mhm.
Disinformation is effective. But it's really important to remember that the main purpose of disinformation is to confuse things. It is not actually to convince people that like there's porn in the classroom. Like
Mhm.
they're not actually going to convince people that that is happening. Of course that's not happening. But the more time we spend talking about that, the less time we spend talking about how they're gutting public education funding and how they're banning books with Black authors and how they're not teaching American history because it makes someone feel bad. Like when we talk about those things, everybody is with us. So they throw something else out in the hopes that we will spend our time knocking it down and not saying the things that people need to hear. So that is a little anatomy of a disinfo campaign. Part of the goal is literally to demoralize people like you. It is not just to convince people of their lies. And that's why they move on from one lie to the other so quickly. Masks become CRT, become sex ed, because, you know, they don't seem to care too much about like sticking around and making sure that you believe the thing that they're talking about. They're right on to trans kids. They're right on to the next thing. And it's just because they want the distraction, because what they're really doing is taking away funding from public education because they don't want any public schools. But if you say, I don't want any public schools, everybody walks away because public schools are really, really popular. So instead, they throw out disinfo after disinfo after disinfo after disinfo, hoping that we will chase the shiny object all over the place and never tell people, look, they're trying to dismantle public education. They want everybody homeschooled or private schooled or religious schooled, and they're trying to take it away. That's what they're doing. When we say that, people get it. So they're doing
Mhm.
everything they can to make sure that we don't have any time to say that.
Can you help folks with the both sides people? Because that's with some wording for that.
I like to think of the both sides people, and we're not talking about the media here. We're talking about like people who are like,
People.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's bad people on both sides. I like to think of that as like the best you're going to get from somebody who disagreed with you but knows you have a point.
Mm.
Like when I start saying about, you know, the violent rhetoric on the other side, it's making everybody scared. It's, you know, it's causing people not to run for office. There are, you know, judges need security, people are moving, and they say to me, you know, both sides really have a problem with that. I'm probably going to just agree with them because I know that what I've gotten there is a concession. That was a yes.
Mhm.
Remember how it's the hardest thing on earth for somebody to say, you know, I was wrong. I was wrong. I was supporting, you know, you're right. All of the threats really do come from one. That's never going to happen. So when they give you the both sides thing, go ahead and agree with them. You don't have to believe that both sides are doing that, but anybody who's doing it is wrong, and you both agree with that. There, common ground. Both
Yeah.
sides have violent rhetoric. Well, I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe that anybody who engages in violent rhetoric is wrong, and you and I share that. That's a win. That is a win for that conversation. Both sides in the media fire off a mean email. They
Mhm.
shouldn't be doing it.
Right, right. Um,
Call the station.
so the whole sources thing. Someone asked, does it make sense to ask someone for sources when they're selling misinformation as truth?
Okay, this is a really good question because there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Mhm.
Misinformation is information that is false, but you don't know that it's false, and so you spread it. That is 99% of what you're dealing with here. Disinformation is information that you know is false and you say it anyway. those are the people that I'm saying avoid, ignore. Like that we're not dealing with them. They are disinformation agents. They are the opposition. We are never going to get them. They are literally invested in ruining your day. The misinformation people, we got to talk to because the other side has lied to them and they have believed it. So that's the difference there. Remind me the specific question. I got too excited about my premise.
Oh, does it make sense to ask someone for sources if
Oh,
they're
yes.
selling misinformation as truth?
Yeah, so if you know that somebody's engaging with you in good faith, right? This is your aunt who is not a kook. She just read something and believes it, and asking her where she heard it, it's not like a challenge. It's not like give me your source on that. It's more like, "Oh, there's so much bad information out there. Where did you read it? Do you remember where you came across it?" Sometimes that helps people start thinking about where they actually heard something, you know? When you say out loud, "Oh, I heard it on Facebook," that might trigger a this might not be a reliable piece of information. And when they say, I heard it on Facebook, you say, oh, there's so much bad information out there.
Mhm.
That's why I'm so glad that we're able to have these conversations because, and now you're off to the races talking about the things that you want to talk about. So asking them for a source, it's not like prove it. It's like, let me know a little bit more about why you're feeling that way. Like, where are you hearing that? How are you encountering that? um, just sort of helping them to ask their own questions. That's the way you start with the Fox News diehards also, is just the like, what makes you afraid of that? Like, what makes you, and then just listen. Listen, take it in for the next conversation.
If someone asked, could a national day of conversation be put together? Churches, schools, businesses could host a small table meal or coffee and conversations. Large gatherings can be hard to host these kinds of conversations, and this kind of thing could be hyped on social media.
Man, I love that idea. What a great idea.
Mhm.
It's kind of like how Mother's Day started. Like we just sort of like decided that we needed a day to like talk about this one thing and churches got in on it and businesses got in on it and no, I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know how to make that happen, but I love the idea. So let's just make relational organizing, friend to friend organizing as big as possible. And when we have a few million people doing it, we'll have our own national day of conversation and everybody can get in on it. That's a fantastic idea.
And let's see here. Didn't President Obama say we can't agree if when we can't agree on what are facts, we're really in trouble? Because that's where we're at now. Even cited sources and the most sane humans consider credible don't that the most sane humans consider credible don't impress them. Those are the opposition that you are referring to,
I,
I believe.
yes. And yes, and we are in trouble. President Obama was correct. And that is where we are. And I would define that as in trouble. Um, but you're not. I I think facts matter less than we want them to matter, honestly. Like our side really, we love a fact, we love a stat, we love empirical data. And I think that's because, like, literally, if you showed me empirical data that said actually having no laws about guns at all keeps everybody safer, and like you could point to a bunch of doctors being like, yes, this is true, I would be like, well, all right, I guess I was wrong. I think our side does that in a way that the other doesn't. So don't think about facts. Facts are never going to win the argument. Like, facts are never going to change anybody's mind. Your personal lived experience is going to change people's minds. Like, when I, if I had the percentage of kids in school who were gay, that wouldn't help somebody understand why they need an education that speaks to them and why they need to see gay authors in the library. If I talk about what it was like when I came out in the 90s, argue with that. You can't. It's my lived experience. There
Mhm.
is no argument. So really, like, especially women have a hard time. Women, of course, we're socialized to do. We have a hard time talking about ourselves. We don't think that like what happened to us yesterday is relevant to a policy political conversation. And in fact, it is the most important thing. You don't need the facts on, healthcare spending. You need your own story about caring for a parent while being sick yourself. You need your own story. It is the most valuable, powerful thing that you have. So please don't discount it. Facts are great and fun and I love them, but I wish that the society ran on facts. It would be so much easier. But we run on emotional resonance, and that means we have to dig deep.
Do you have any book suggestions on cult deprogramming?
Oh man, I should. I don't. But I'm never going to do another one of these trainings without having that because I mention it. It's not what I do. Like it is a distinct art form, um, and science. And I have a ton of respect. I have like too much respect for it to like try to give you a light version of it, but I should have a resource if I'm going to talk about it this much. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Um, what's the best way to address the whitewashing / deletion of history, removing all the history that shows where America made mistakes?
Yeah. Talk about it because everybody agrees with you.
Mhm.
Like literally like everybody. Like even people who still identify as Republicans do not want you to stop teaching United States history if it might make people uncomfortable. Parents especially, like they want their kids to be able to move in a 21st century world, and not teaching them history is not going to do that. So the best thing you can do to combat that is to talk about it everywhere it is, everywhere it's happening in school. Like this is the one where if you stood on a soapbox, everybody within earshot would agree with you. People just don't know that it's happening, and they don't know that there's anything they can do about it.
Mhm.
But this is actually one of the ones that we really, really win on.
So please elaborate on saying no and moving on to the facts. Not sure that that's being perceived as being argumentative, even though it's required.
Well, a little bit of it is delivery. You don't want to be like, no, how silly are you for believing that? But if somebody is saying, the terrible stuff about the Haitian community, my answer is going to be like, oh, that is so not true. What really matters is that we are taking care of our immigrant communities in the ways that they take care of us. Or what I want you to know about the Haitian community is the way that they have revitalized the neighborhood of Springfield and the value that they contribute to it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to say, or you know what? Oh, that makes me so sad every time I hear that. My experience with trans kids is this. Like, go ahead and acknowledge the bad thing, but then move to what your own personal experience is. If somebody's talking about, I am repeating the disinformation left and right here because I'm trying to set up examples. Please don't be me. Like if somebody's talking about food stamps and how, food stamps are a redistribution of wealth and they're a way to take things away from white people, I'm not going to win by saying, actually, white people are the biggest recipients of food stamps, even though that's entirely true. I'm going to win by saying, you know, some of the families that I grew up with grew up on food stamps, and I saw how difficult that was and how hard they were working to pull themselves out of it and how much they cared about their kids. Or I remember when my mom needed, assistance in basic needs programs in order to make sure that I was able to, whatever personal story you have, that's the way to combat the disinformation because you cannot argue with what happened to me or what I have seen firsthand,
Mhm.
or the stories people have told me. You can argue with facts, unfortunately. You shouldn't be able to, but you can argue with what with your own life.
Well, this is a good one too. So we all belong to ally groups of some sort. However, those memes that get in there that don't cite any sources and probably are not accurate or reliable info, um, and they seem real easy, to spread. How do we combat those?
How do we combat disinformation that's particularly easy to spread?
Yeah, well, yeah, you know how when we're in those allied groups, I mean, we don't allow that kind of stuff in Sweet, but in other groups that folks, belong to, somebody's going to post a meme and it's actually got, misinformation in it.
Okay.
How do we combat that?
Oh, in our own ally groups. What an interesting question. I've never gotten this question before. I would do it gently. But I do think we need to police. We need to make sure that we are not spreading disinformation. Um, And that means we have to check our own biases. If we hear something that, like, when I hear something great, I just want to believe that it's true. And like, I got burned by this the other day, actually, just a couple weeks ago, and I felt so silly because I literally teach disinformation trainings. And there was a tweet that I saw from one of Elon Musk's ex-girlfriends, and it was just so very funny, and I very much wanted it to be true. And so I put it up on my Instagram stories, and Chris Hayes DM'd me and said, "Is this real?" And then I was like, "Oh God, I didn't check." And so I went and I checked, and it was not real and had actually made the rounds before. And I had to like write back and then pull it down and be like, "I'm sorry I fell for it. I wanted it to be true. It was not. My bad." So it
That
happens to the
happens to the
best of us, is what I'm saying. I think everybody should have, I know that Sweep does a really good job of like moderating things because it shouldn't be on the community to do it. It should be on the moderators to do it. So if you see it happening a lot in a space, I would talk to the moderators. If you feel like you're in a position to just sort of gently be like, "Ooh, I'm not sure that's right." Like most of us don't want to spread bad stuff. Like I was not trying to be a disinformation agent with my Elon Musk's ex-girlfriend tweet. I just really wanted it to be true. And as soon as somebody asked me whether it was, I was like, "Oh crap." And I fixed it. So just sort of gently being like, "I don't know about this. Do you have a site?" is probably enough if you're in an allied group, but if it keeps happening, talk to the moderators.
Mhm.
Great
So,
question.
and this is another good one. What if you don't have a story of your own to tell?
Think a little harder. You do. You have a reason for being here. It is 8:17 on a Thursday night, and you are here. You're here for a reason. You love somebody. You care about something. You have engaged with a social safety net or basic needs program, or you know somebody who has. You have had an abortion, or you know somebody who has. You have read books that are being banned. You have learned from an education, or not learned from an education. You have either enjoyed the values that you are trying to make sure people can have, or you have missed the values that you are trying to make sure people can have. But everybody has a story.
Um, Flipping through, making sure that I didn't miss any questions.
Oh, they can't argue, but they can say, "Well, that's too bad." Take that as another win. Like literally recognize when they are ending the conversation like that, it's because there's nowhere to go. Give them time to think about it. Like you're never going to have the conversation where they're like, "You're right. I was wrong. I've changed my mind now. Thanks for that." Conversation over. If you are actually doing the difficult work of like persuading somebody, they need time to process it. It's going to
Mhm.
take more than one conversation. So if somebody's saying, "Well, that's too bad, but this," they're going to think about it later.
So, someone who is running for office, school board, in a red area, deep red area, other than the history stuff, what are other good talking points that many will actually agree with?
Sex ed, wildly popular. There's a reason why I say it over and over again in these. Everybody thinks, especially high schoolers, should have sex ed, age appropriate stuff. Um, US history, books, banning books. Everybody hates banning books. Banning books is one of the least popular things you can do. So talking about the fact that they want to remove, United States history, they want to ban books by gay or black authors. They want to not teach our kids who we are and how we got here. And they want to promote bullying. The number one concern for parents in public education is bullying. I was shocked by this. I would have thought it was like funding or maybe even school shootings, but it is bullying. So the fact that they are promoting policies that encourage bullying kids, you can say that to anybody and they're going to nod their head. Nobody wants to see kids get bullied. And when you say you can't say gay, you are creating an environment where kids are going to get bullied. And not just the gay kids, anybody who, they will use that to bully anybody. We all went to school. I'm sure a lot of us got bullied for stuff that we weren't. And that's what they're creating here. So bullying, books, history, very, very solid ground. Sex ed, very solid ground.
Um, and you said age appropriate sex ed.
Yes.
Very quickly for elementary school, can you say what that means? And then there's another question
Yeah.
that's been repeated a couple times I want to ask you.
I love talking about what sex ed in elementary school is, because probably none of us got it. I certainly didn't. It's the concepts that you might want to know that would get layered on. So you start talking about consent, right, in kindergarten, and that's asking to borrow something before you take it. Or it's asking a friend whether they want a hug or a high five. Nothing to do with sex, nothing at all to do with sex. But you can see how learning that concept at that age turns into something that you can build on when you're actually talking about having a sexual relationship. So in elementary school, for the really, really young kids, you're learning healthy relationships and concepts like that. You know, my body, your body, consent, not related to sex. For older elementary school kids, you're learning puberty stuff because that's what's happening.
Mhm.
You know, that's the basic sex ed that you're thinking about. It you know, it starts happening to kids in the fourth, fifth grade.
Yep.
If you've started a year earlier, it makes it so much less traumatic, and again, decreases bullying because we all know what's going on, and it's a lot harder to make fun of things that, you know, that you know about. So that when you are lucky enough, when you are fortunate enough to have a comprehensive sex ed curriculum in your elementary school, that is what is being talked about. And these curriculums are usually the most transparent of anything. Like parents can opt out of the entire thing or a single lesson or a single question on a single test. Like this is the curriculum where the parents have the most involvement. 9 times out of 10, the whole thing is posted online for you to see every single thing that is being taught. So that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with elementary school sex ed.
Is there a good site or source for true facts for the ones who ask, show me your source?
Well, I think we're not winning arguments with facts. We're talking about our lived experience. Like that is the best way to do it.
Mhm.
If you have like the show me your source people, you like sure, I mean, the New York Times doesn't lie, but if you don't believe the New York Times, then my citing it's not going to help. Um you know, you can there is no I wish there was an answer to this question that was like, yes, this is the source that you can show people and they will be like, correct. Um But there isn't. That's the world that we live in right now. So, if you can, always cite medical professionals. People do still trust doctors and pediatricians. So, you know, if you're talking about what kids need in school, pediatricians agree is
Mhm.
still good. But yeah, don't win arguments with facts. One, if you're arguing with a show me your source person, that's probably somebody you shouldn't be spending your time and energy on. And two, if you're using facts, you are not using the strongest tools in your toolbox.
Mhm. So, and we get asked this question a lot. How do you make the decision to have this conversation when it might hurt the relationship?
Oh, that's so personal.
Mhm.
Truly, so think about instead. Well, this is so it's so hard. It's so personal. There is a line. Like there are certain things that I simply won't tolerate in my presence. And I am not willing to open up a safe space where I would ask questions about those beliefs and maintain calm and and open up that dialogue. That's I get to decide where that line is. Um, and when it's crossed, I will say, hey, that's a really hateful thing to say, and I'm not going to stick around for it, and I'm out. And if I hurt the relationship, I hurt the relationship, but I need to protect myself more than I need to protect this person. And if they're going to say hateful things in my presence, I'm going to leave. If I can manage, if it's not triggering one of those things for me, if it's something that I'm capable of having a more detailed conversation or that I have more curiosity about, you know, like how did you like some things just like hit me in the feels and I don't have curiosity about how you came to hate black people. I truly don't. I don't want to know.
Mhm.
I'm out. I don't have curiosity about bullying trans kids. But if you're talking about like school curriculum and history making white kids feel bad and all. Well, I can have some curiosity about that. Like that's a conversation that I can like sit down and be like, well, talk to me about why white kids feel bad about learning about slavery. I don't remember feeling that way. So tell me why you're worried about it. Like I can do that without feeling like I'm compromising myself or making myself nauseous. So I think everybody just feel your line and honor it.
I
And
think feel your
and
line and honor it is great. That's absolutely fantastic.
my
Everybody needs
therapist
to write
said that
that
in a,
down. Feel your line and honor it, because we don't do that enough. We don't.
yeah.
And then we do sometimes, especially when we happen to stumble into one of these arguments, if you will, disagreements with someone who we shouldn't have been doing that with in the first place. It does get very hard, and then you just get so frustrated, and then you're mad at yourself. So
Yes. And
yes,
then you don't have the productive conversations that you wanted to have, and you go
yes,
home and you drink a glass of wine and you cry, and that is exactly what they want. That was the whole point. The whole point was actually to ruin your specific night. It was
yes.
not to change anybody's mind.
Hmm.
When it comes to hurting the relationship, like if you're at the place where you really care about hurting the relationship, that might be a great place to start the conversation. Like, look, my values mean a lot to me, and I know that they're different from you, but I really don't want to hurt this relationship. But I also don't want to pretend that I'm not who I am. So I would like to create a space where we can, where we can talk, or where we don't talk. But like I would say, I think being honest in that if you care enough about the person to not want to hurt the relationship, I think telling them that is probably a really good way to start opening up that dialogue.
Somebody said that it's their mom, and
Yeah.
they love her so much, but they know that they've agreed to not talk about certain topics. I mean, and I think that sometimes that might be the thing.
Sometimes that's the thing. Like if you're not going to change the mind, you're not going to change the mind, and you got to protect your own peace.
Hmm.
But if you can try to be, without crossing your own line, as non-judgmental as possible, as curious and as compassionate, then when something happens that changes your mom's mind because, her social security checks get cut off, or all of a sudden the price of things is way higher than she thought it was going to be, or I mean, things are happening right now that are changing people's minds left and right. They are
Yeah.
not admitting it, but we are starting to see that in polling. Everybody's starting to hear this anecdotally. So like if
Hmm.
you can create a non-judgmental space, maybe your mom will come to you when something like that happens. um, and you will celebrate internally so loudly, but so quietly on the outside, and you will never make her say that she was wrong.
Well, we just have a couple minutes left. Any last words of wisdom before we let everyone go?
Oh, from me, I thought we were
Yeah.
looking for more from me.
Nope.
Words of wisdom. Honestly, you guys are doing it. You're doing it. You're the absolute, like, you are the key to getting out of this mess. And I don't mean to put too much pressure on you, but you're the only key to getting out of this mess.
Mhm. Mhm.
So keep doing what you're doing and protect your own mental health. Please do recognize how important that is to this. So make sure you have the things that you need and the time that you need and the friends that you need. Lean on each other, lean on community. Keep having the conversations. And thank you all for spending an hour of your night doing this.
There are so many thanks in the chat for
Oh,
you.
oh, that's so sweet.
And people are just I kept saying every time that the slide came up, you gotta come to this. So I hope that some of you that are on here tonight are ones who came because I said you gotta come to this.
I'm so glad. I'm so
So
glad.
thank
You all
you,
are
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you as always. And I'll kick it back over to Julie.
All right, I'll jump in. Not much else to say. Like we said, we knew you all would love Jess because it's just always so much great information. So everybody have a really great evening, and we will see you soon.
Thank
Good
you
night,
all.